backgrounds. Together, they will learn leadership skills and nonviolent ways to resolve conflicts. They will also work to break down stereotypes and prejudice barriers. We'll have more on their experience here on News 4 over the next week. The construction of Denver's new library addition is...
And what they're doing takes intense concentration. What they're learning may help change the future. Building a bridge takes a lot of hard work with many people working together. That applies to a bridge made of steel and concrete, but it can also apply to a different kind of bridge. Several girls from the Middle East are in Denver building bridges for peace. In this week's Children First, a story about young people helping build a new future. Palestinians and Israelis. Enemies for centuries. The fighting in the Middle East, for many, a way of life. But far away from their homelands, young Palestinians and Israelis come together to learn about each other and to look at solutions to years of animosity.
It doesn't matter what your background is, you still have to get across that rope somehow, and you have to trust the other kids.
Like this?
You gotta bring it, yeah, you just have to loosen that up.
Oh, we need to wear helmets.
These girls are in Denver as part of a program called Building Bridges for Peace. It teaches young women leadership skills, how to manage conflict without resorting to violence, and gives them an appreciation of diversity.
And they're learning about each other. They're learning how to get along with each other, how to trust each other.
Tighter, please. Support group. Tighter.
Today they learn teamwork by working on a maze of ropes and logs.
They have to overcome their own personal fears, and I think that fear is kind of an equalizing factor.
Now, I'm holding you.
It's called a challenge course, and it teaches people to trust and support each other, work together, and challenge themselves beyond what they thought they could do.
Okay, I trust you, Nadia. More.
Today it doesn't matter if they're Palestinian, Israeli, African American, Mexican American, rich, poor. It doesn't matter. They're just working together.
I guess we're learning many things. It's not just learning how to ride up these ropes, and so we're learning how to help each other, work with each other.
The program has given the young women an opportunity to talk about political, religious, and cultural differences, and to talk about how to live in harmony despite those differences.
We're going to talk, and we're going to need the help of each other to get through the problems we have and get to the solution.
Before the day was over, they had learned that many differences can be made smaller by building bonds of friendship.
Oh, thank you. I love you, too. Oh, group hug.
The young women will say goodbye to each other next week. The girls from the Middle East leave for home, and the girls from Denver head into their own communities, where they'll use their experience in volunteer projects.
The two-week program came to a close today.
Let's hammer out peace agreements for the Middle East, and the U.S. Congress tries to pass a crime bill with the hopes of decreasing the violence in our own country. A different kind of peacemaking is going on in the Colorado mountains, and by a most unlikely group, teenaged girls. They call it Building Bridges for Peace. Around the piano, from this angle, they are any group of teenage girls, but they are so different. If you ask them, they will tell you they are Israeli, Mexican-American, Palestinian, African-American, Christian, Jew. They come from different worlds, but they have come here with a single purpose, to meet each other face to face. But it's not easy.
I don't hate the Israelis because they are Israelis. I hate them because they took my land.
At this camp on Mount Evans, they can confront that hatred peacefully. The program is called Building Bridges for Peace, and the high school girls who come from Denver and from the Middle East are wise enough to know that before they can build bridges, before there can be peace, they must learn to talk and to listen. And they hope that in the process they can discover somewhere something in common.
I live in Israel, and it's right next to Palestinian girls, but I never really talked with them, and I just wanted them to know my side of the story, and Denver girls to know it too.
Adva knows that in the Middle East, hatred brings violence. Now she's hearing that it does in Denver too.
And they're like, yeah, we dodge bullets every day. Well, we do too, in a different way. It's just as bad. A life, a death is a death. Either way, it's bad. And there's not one worse than the other.
Different worlds, but a shared experience. It brings them closer. An exercise like this helps too. Learning to rely on another, learning to trust another, maybe someone you never would have trusted before.
We learned that even we have different opinions, different beliefs, that we can become friends and live together.
The girls from Denver know how difficult it is. Different colors, different religions. They keep people apart.
To me, it just gives me, an insight of that, it's not just the United States that's having the problems, and it's everywhere.
We're starting to sympathize with each other, that we all hurt in some way.
The hurt runs deep. Admitting it can make it even more painful.
It's not your land. It's our land.
It's our country. It's
Why
our
do
land.
we walk in
It's
our streets? Why?
It's my home.
Okay, but I have a home too.
I know that, but I have a home too. That's my only home.
There is an anger here that cannot be erased by a week at summer camp. A sadness that will linger no matter how much they talk. But from somewhere in this shared experience, there grows a bond.
Can you understand Lila's anger?
Yeah, of course, because I have the same situation too.
The fact that we are here and we are meeting and being together and sleeping together and having all eating together, and it's just show us that we have something in common.
That something is enough to join their hands in a dance, Christian or Muslim or Jew, and to bring them around the piano together to raise their voices in song. And this week, they are starting to see what they had hoped they would see, that from some angles, they are so much the same.
These girls are so wise. They said, we know we haven't come here to solve the problems of the world, but we also know that we're the future. And it may just start by sitting down and talking with each other and learning about our differences. And then that way the differences aren't so hateful.
You've been involved in this organization for some time. You were instrumental in getting all these people together. When you attend these things and you see the differences and you see the little arguments like the one that broke out between those two girls, do you become more discouraged or more hopeful about what's going on?
Oh no, it's very, very hopeful, and they say the same thing. They say these are things that are so deep-seated in us and that they are so much in our souls that they aren't things that are going to go away right away. But again, it begins with talking, and it begins with examining each other's differences and learning to understand.
It's a wonderful project.
It's a neat story.
Well, again today we were...
I understand you are fond of your fish, but are we floating anywhere near a point here?
The point is where they use their experience in volunteer projects.
The two-week program came to a close today. The purpose to teach these young ladies about women in leadership, differences in culture, and about conflict management. The girls say they learned a lot from the program.
What I really learned was about two different cultures that I never knew about, and I learned something about myself too. I learned that I'm very outspoken and I have a lot to say, and people do listen to me.
I never really known any Israelis as girls or as people, and I never wanted to know because they're my enemy. But in this program, I got to know the other side's perspective about what they think, and there was a lot in common.
Well, the girls built a flower arrangement to symbolize peace. They also made a quilt for peace.
Some terrific lessons learned, I'm
Very
sure.
good lessons.
Hundreds of cars were on display at the Arvada Center.
Together, and they also learned to accept one another.
I met the Israeli people, and this is the first time I meet Israeli girls and talk to them and laugh and sleep together, eat together. We discussed many problems, and we found some solutions to these problems.
Hatred is blind. When you don't know someone, so it's very easy to hate him. But when you get to know him or her, you just can't hate him.
And tonight they linked arms and sang together. This was the end of the two-week meeting, but the beginning of new friendships and new understanding.
The Earthquake Kids, those are the California youngsters who become a tremendous source of inspiration